Hey everybody, today's video is something that I hope you really enjoy. I'm interviewing the highest level free-to-play, but I want to add some caveats to that free-to-play because I know not everybody agrees on that term, as well as interviewing Istio, who is currently the highest level player, who does openly talk about his spending in this interview. But the free-to-play player that I'm interviewing has had $45 on their account, a $5 Leslie pack, a $20 Devore pack back in the 20s, and a battle pass they won from a content creator. Now, you might ask, why did I choose a pure free-to-play? Simple answer. I balance between some awesome pure free-to-plays we have in the 50s versus just the fact that somebody has already made it into the G6 or Sigma area of the game, but that doesn't mean I think anybody else has less valuable input. In fact, I want to do more of this. So if you're interested in this type of content, these type of videos, let me know what you would like to see specifically. That's really all I have to add. That's it. Just want to let y'all know how this works and here, digest the information. But if you want to be in these, let me know.
Fancy intro music, yeah! Woohoo!
All right, everybody. I am joined by JamesBondd. Yep, that one. Exactly that one. And Istio. Istio, of course, is the greatest free-to-play in the game, and JamesBondd is the highest level. How about you two introduce yourselves? We'll start with JamesBondd because that's what has kind of started this. This is, I think, our third interview with a high-level free-to-play, but the last one was Decx like 2 years ago. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I started playing the game, I think Q1 of 2020, about 4.5 years ago, just when COVID started, and the game really helped me keep my sanity when we were all locked down, and got into it right away. Yeah, that's really the gist of it. Just played since, great community, and the community is really what kept me in here all this time.
And Istio, tell the world who you are.
Yeah, so I'm running the moniker IstioCat. I've been playing since game launch, but I spent the first 3-4 years completely, well, no, not completely, mostly free to play through the first 3-4 years. So I kind of have some experience on James's life, and then decided to go nuclear. And now I am the 7.5 billion monstrosity that you see today.
The point of this, for those who are watching, is to try to provide perspective. Number one, I want to provide a perspective of James's gameplay, which is not completely free to play. We've already discussed this. You've had, what, $40 we discovered on your account. You won a free battle pass from a content creator. You bought a Devore pack back in the day, and
Yeah.
Everybody has those regrets. That did open up to make your treasury a little bit better. So when you do get a free treasury, yours is not the $0 treasury.
Right, it did push it over.
That said, and as if you were watching, you will see on the screen, this is his account. So it's level 62, no extra builder, no extra researcher, no extra docs. I mean, the normal things that when we do talk about what are you going to spend on, everybody says, we need to buy these things. He didn't buy them. So he has had, between free battle passes and then that Devore pack, raised his treasury level. But I even reached out to VIP CMs to confirm that he's not secretly a whale. So we want to provide a perspective of what does it take to go up to that level? What are the limitations? What are the problems you might face? What are the benefits you might get? And then also have it from the other perspective where Istio is sitting. Obviously, Istio is at the very top of the VIPs currently and can give that play style while also, as he said, having gotten to play it in its beginning of the... for you, what are some of your expectations? Because I know I brought this up to you and James a couple weeks ago. What do you expect his play styles like? Are you expecting just lots of camping, lots of saving and spending on certain things? Or are you just kind of bewildered, as I'm sure most people are going to be, talking about somebody who's level 62 and hasn't really been spending money?
Yeah, so I'd expect he's very, very targeted. So he's saving up for very specific things, very specific events, very specific researches, trying to get all of that efficiency right out of the gate before he spends any amount of resources trying to grow. He can't waste anything. Like, I just want to say, it's so weird looking at his user interface right now and seeing 6 docks and so few building queues and research queues when I have everything now for a while, right? So he has to be so targeted with what he does in the order he does it in.
James, let me roll to you, because honestly, I want to hit first. And if you'd be so kind, open up your items menu and go over to your materials. What is it that you have to focus on the most when it comes to hoarding certain materials and savings? How do you approach that? Because obviously you can use things like leaderboards to springboard you into future content and to help you level up. So how has that been your focus? What have you done? And what do you focus on in that area?
Yeah, so really it's like Istio said, it's about efficiency, patience and efficiency. You have to be very calculated. You need to come up with a plan. You can't just be in the moment and spend on whatever looks shiny, because then that derails you and takes you away from the target. For me, playing and actually progressing in ops is what gives me a lot of satisfaction in the game. So that's what I target, is how do I get to the next ops level as fast as I can. Now, the key is with materials, it's actually, you want to max refine as much as possible. Every time, twice a day. Don't underestimate it. So like, look, for example, my G4s, my target goal is about 100 days worth of max refines of every currency, if I can. So G4, I still maintain it, even though I don't really need G4 anymore. G5, I still do. There's still a lot of G5 that I need to. So for me, I need 340 million of each to actually stay at the 100 days level. 6 star, that's a challenge. Now, I don't do max refine yet because I'm running 3 Selkies, by the way, and it's just not enough. You can see that I'm mining a lot. So yeah, it's about efficiency. Don't underestimate max refines, because if you do max refine, then it means you're getting 2 additional chests of each material a day. And that comes up to 60 a month, 700 and something a year. That's a lot of each material. That's worth a few packs right there.
Well, it's worth noting, because one thing that gets talked about a lot, I know Istio's even seen this amongst his players, is that the refinery is useless, right? Like, it's almost not worth pulling, even with the updates. That just gets thrown out a lot. And you're saying for you, it's a preeminent feature, as in that is,
it's
any day
a lot.
We're going straight into the refinery.
Yeah, look what the chances you have here. And now I have the prime because I used the G6 uncommon for the prime. So 5 chests every pull, and I have a chance of pulling this. Now, this is not a joke. 5 rolls, 5 attempts to get this, that actually adds up. Because, I mean, statistically, yeah, you're going to have some bad pulls sometimes, but it's adding up very quickly.
Okay, so refinery being big for you. In terms of leaderboards, how do you approach that? And how about we use it as an opportunity to pull up your officer menu? Do you feel like officers are an area that might have to be sacrificed? If your goal is to do as you're doing, which is focusing on ops, does that mean you're going to miss out on officers? Do you feel like you're doing well in that area, especially with newer ones? How's that going?
Yeah, so as far as officers, now I got lucky because when I pushed from 59 to 60, we had this auction, so I got her to tier 2.
Nice.
Now, I was going to spend anyway. I had about 100 million worth of points to spend. So I spent them on over the 2 weekends. Was a lot of material. So I got lucky. But honestly, I don't see the point of actually holding your progression for a chance to get an officer, because in the large scheme of things, on a given arc, we can get, 150 shards of an officer at best. And we need 1,500 to max it. So unless Scopely introduces an actual sourcing mechanic, it's really a drop in the bucket. So you're not really going to get an officer. I mean, this one I got lucky because this is a loot officer, which I really recommend prioritizing. But I try not to hold back anymore. Like, I think there was a question on Discord, what if you have a regret, looking at all the time. My biggest regret is actually camping for a long time from 39 to 40.
How long were you there? Because I know I was, as probably the preeminent content creator who talks about the benefits of camping. Even I was like, people like John Connor spent like a year there, and I'm just like, why? Right? Because for me, camping is always about setting goals, and again, goes back to playstyle. Because like we can see on your screen, one thing that you're struggling with, I don't want to make it seem like you're a bad player. You're level 62. You're doing great. PvP is clearly something that isn't a priority for you.
Number one sacrifice.
Yeah,
number one.
That's clearly not an issue. But even then, I think camping gets thrown into, and me and Lube have talked about this, where people will just throw out numbers like sitting somewhere for 6 months, and very, very few people I think that would apply to. Now, things have to be considered. Variables such as how much do you spend in game? Like, how much would you say you spend time-wise in game every day?
So, like, actual engagement, like full-time, have my full attention, I would say about 2 to 3 hours a day.
Yeah. Okay.
On the weekend, I can spend a little extra time maybe to catch up on some currencies that I need to farm to actually raise the fuel for all the refines for the week.
Did you would say conservatively maybe 20 hours a week? Conservatively?
Minimum.
Okay, minimum. Yeah. All right, 20 hours a week. So that's a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
So that by itself is going to be difficult to emulate for some, but still the strategy can definitely be emulated. And to your point, the camping for officers on a weekend is only one valid strategy. And I've always kind of mentioned that for me, if you're sitting, like if you're at 39 wondering how can you be James, I don't think it's sitting for officers. I told somebody who was sitting at 35 today, why don't you just go to 39? I mean, you've got a tier 8 enterprise. Sure, you could hit on officers, but you're ready. Move up. But
one thing to consider is actually the longer you sit in an ops level, you're missing out on the potential rewards you can get when you're moving up. So like if you sit in G5 and you camp there for a few months, you're not even starting to collect G6. That's a long time to waste. So if you upgrade and then you get also higher payout from G5, then you can go retroactively and upgrade everything you want. I mean, it's really about like maximizing the amount of income you can get from the game for free. And also like ticket events, for example. I cannot do all ticketed events, so I have to target the materials I actually need.
Yeah.
So Spock's Club, huge tool that I use. Like I used Excel spreadsheets up to that point with formulas. But here you sync your account, you actually see exactly the number that you need. And if I see, okay, I'm short on gas, then it means every gas ticketed event I'm going for. If I see a gas SLB, then I try to place as high as I can. Okay. But now being in G6, like the chances of me placing top 3, those days are pretty much over. But if I place top 10, top 25, still a decent payout.
And Istio, how does this compare to how you'll approach things? I mean, because you might do it a different method, but you still, I would actually say you probably focus more on leaderboards than James does. How does this compare to you?
Yeah, because my goal at the end of the day is officers. I need those PvP officers. I need the PvP forbidden tech. I need the things that are not directly sold. So when I'm tracking things in spreadsheets, I know I have infinite resources. And I literally have infinite resources to throw at the problem. But there are things they do not sell, or they don't sell in large quantities. I have to go win those SLBs, so I have limited space available to me. There's only so much you can upgrade at the end of the day. There's a finite limit where eventually I'm going to have all the ships built and they're all going to be maxed. So I have to carefully plan for a maximum. Otherwise, I'm going to go over the limit and then I'm going to lose out on a whole bunch. It's going to be at least a year probably until G7 opens. So while the concerns aren't perfectly aligned, they're very similar.
Well, I love how you mentioned it because I'll throw it on the screen. Last time I checked, your max cube was 135. It's probably grown since then. It's been probably a month and a half. What is your biggest cube at right now?
My biggest cube is 145 billion now.
So it's gone up another 10 billion since the last screenshot I had stored. So you've got the problem of running out of things, and where James is coming at it from the ops angle, having to be very calculated about what they go after. So James, for you, acknowledging that PvP has little relevance to you, which is completely fine, by the way, I am curious how you look at features that are coming out right now. For example, PvP arenas, which even if you're not in PvP, does provide a lot in terms of efficiency, which is clearly the name of your game. How do you approach features that do happen to be PvP focused, even if that's an area that your account might be weaker at?
Right. So I recognize that I cannot compete with my peer that actually spends on PvP officers and tiers up their ship. Like my tier reaches maybe tier 4.5 at best. Whenever I see that it requires rare materials, I stop right there. So they're going to overpower me. But if I come in with a Enterprise D, I can still overpower everybody in the 50s, even though they have a tier 8 ship. And also with Arena specifically, there's a lot of strategy there. Like we were underpowered many times and we still won because you got to time it with the armadas and everything. Yeah. So it's not purely like, face-to-face, head smash, and let's see who wins. There's a lot of outsmarting the opponent.
I mean, I've given them a lot of shout out, but Server 702 has an alliance called Jin that went up against my group of G5s. They're level capped at 50 with G4s and absolutely whooped us. So and the strategy is a big deal that can help you overcome some of that PvP. But as you said, like if you run into, say, a very PvP focused player who's a level 57, 58, and their cube is Tantalus fielded, latest PvP officers, it's going to probably take down your Enterprise D.
They're gonna nuke my ship,
but you can use tactics to say still score and still provide. Do you find that slowdown? Like, I'll just ask this way: are you calculating how long it's going to take you to go after, say, the blueprint efficiencies in the arena, or is it something that doesn't really interest you that much?
Those, I see the value, but I really don't have a faction credit problem. Like, I entered G6 with 3.5 million of each faction credit. And I spent Klingon for 2 Selkies, Federation for 1 Selkie and 1 Enterprise D, and I left Romulan untouched because those are going to be my 63 and 66 ships.
And just to explain to those who aren't there, you can treat the Selkie essentially like a G6 Nova in terms of multiple ways to access the blueprint.
Yeah, and you got to have it because mining G6 without a Selkie is just impossible.
Yeah, I mean, warp range alone is going to be a limiting factor there. So,
but even here, like, I relocated to this, and I have 3 non-Selkies that are mining. Like, their mining rate is just ridiculous. 3.5 versus 60.
Yeah, this goes back to like the whole original idea of the Sigma area of the game to be an economy reset, if you will. I mean, in a lot of ways, you're getting experience this. Obviously, Istio gets experience. It's very different economy-wise than G5. Even if a lot of it is, you can call it copy paste, but the numbers have definitely changed where you're used to going after mining rates that are in the millions and needing billions of things. That has changed now to be lower numbers, but even harder to obtain.
Yeah, but it is a different play style. I mean, you have the hazard situation that is a very different play style. And that's one of the things that I like, is to challenge myself. Like, if I stay too long in a certain ops range, I start getting bored. Everything gets repetitive. But here, like, okay, so I'll burn some hulls and I'll, try to figure it out and try to find a different crew. And that gives me the excitement. And also, playing it on hard mode, like, because I mentally shut the door of the store, I have to find a creative solution or it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's like solving a puzzle. That's what I like about it.
And for those listening, this is exactly why I wanted to do this, because I try to really highlight this all the time. There's so many ways to play this game, and there's not a wrong way unless you're not enjoying what you're doing. That's the wrong way. If you're playing this and you're unhappy, something's wrong. And we can definitely complain that the game itself will be very problematic with its bugs, its lag, etc. But wanting people to find ways that they can be successful, and I know there's so many free-to-play players who want to be able to push up and want to be able to enjoy, but don't have the resources, as Istio said, the infinite resources to be able to do anything. So next step on your journey of how you've gotten up there, we talked about how you've done and approached mats, how you've approached resources, and to an extent how you approach events. But I actually would like to hit now, and then I want to hit Istio afterwards. How do you approach events, period? Like your dailies, battle pass, do you have a set order? Is there a time frame you expect to spend this amount of time doing this every day? Tell me how you approach the game from a events perspective.
Yeah. So because it's about efficiency, not just efficiency of materials, but also time. So I actually try to do both the daily missions and the daily events at the same time. So waiting for the actual reset, daily event reset, and then do everything all at once. So that's when I really, find like a chunk of 2 hours that I can take care of everything and complete them. There are some things that I skip, like all those weekly events like Swarm Sunday, Mining Monday, Cerritos, everything that pays G4 and below, I don't need it. It's a waste of time. Now, if it happens to be in synergy with something else that's going on that day, then yeah, sure, I'll complete it. But I just skip those. Like even there's the jellyfish event, the one that pays G4. Forgot what it's called. I have no reason to do it anymore. Like I don't need G4 materials. And
yeah, even I don't do the Jelly Brawl event, or even I do Parabellum a little bit, mostly because of the Latinum payout, but even that is becoming less valuable to my main account in the 50s, and my level 57 account never does those events. But more of what I was wanting to get at is, how do you prioritize, or is it a dailies are a must, then battle pass, then looking for those specific events you were talking about like gas, or do you simply have a time frame of I'm going to do this for an hour, and if I don't get it done, then I don't, or I do, and then I'll do some bonus? How do you manage that time? Because, we'll have a lot of players just getting through the refinery clicks, and the dailies is a 30, 45-minute process.
Yeah, so, I mean, definitely all the refinery clicks, You want to complete those daily. Like I have a time in the morning that I just open chests. Daily missions, I usually complete almost all of them. Daily events, definitely the battle pass. You can ignore whatever payout that doesn't really contribute to your progression. But I don't skip mini events. You can skip some of them. Like, it's just not, the SLBs. And also, like, if I see something that is not Matt's payout, I actually question the event. Is there any use for me to do this? For a little bit of, like, extra Syndicate XP, I mean, it's not. Is it worth my time? Because I have limited time to put into the game, so I have to pick and choose. It's not like the way it used to be a few years ago when we had limited amount of loops, and then, okay, yeah, I can just complete them all. Now you have to pick and choose, or you're going to find yourself who knows how many hours in the game.
Istio, how's that compared to you? I mean, how do you approach things like dailies and events? Or do you simply just choose things that you can actively engage in, or do you still do the simple things like dailies and refinery clicks?
I start every day and just go through the list of everything I can solve with money first, right? I know that sounds bad to say out loud, but
I mean, if you have that ability, that's great.
Yeah. And just eliminate them off my list. Check, 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 done. And then I'm not that dissimilar actually to James in that I'm going to go through and first identify the things that they do not sell that I'm going to have to do, and I want it, right? So if I'm dealing with a PvP officer, which they generally don't just outright sell them these days, I'm going to go prioritize those. After that, the dailies are a nice flow, even though I have a lot of resources. At the end of the day, fixing G6 ships is not cheap. I still like to go through the daily flow of making sure I get the 200 to 300,000 Sigma Tritanium that they offer up every single day. That's about what I get for free now. I know that's probably not available to someone in James's position because a lot of that is like activated with tier 18 ships. Not every player gets access to that, but it's important for me because they're giving me so much free repair materials that leads into the next, which is I dedicate a certain amount of time every day to experimentation, because some events you need to learn how to do them, right? If I can find a more efficient way of doing them, I want to go find that, or I want to experiment with a PvP crew, etc. It's important for me to work a bit of experimentation into every day. It's actually the thing I'm most curious about with James. When you get into your 63, when you get into your G6 Uncommon, these are not cheap ships to repair. Like, you're going to have to budget resources to experimentation. Otherwise, you're not going to know how to use them, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I even feel it slightly with the 3 Selkies because I send them to the hazard system and they're not maxed without research, so they do blow up like twice each. Yeah, it's costly. I mean, you see, I only carry 70k raw, and I think it's about 1,000 each to repair, so I need to spend 6k a day. It's not cheap. But by then, I'm expecting my Enterprise D right now is tier 6, I believe, and maybe 1 module. It should be tier 8 by then, and then that will also unlock the cube for me. My Enterprise D at tier 6 can handle 63 hostiles. So I'm already ready to take down the hostiles for the next ops level. And by the way, like when I just moved into G6, it was a pain. I had to use everything, all the exos, all the buffs to just survive, to kill maybe 2 or 3 of them. So I burnt a lot of halls, but then it just gets easier. Then you start tiering it up, and also you have access to the researches of G6 researches, which was a big difference. Makes all the difference.
One thing for me is going to be interesting, and this is another reason why I want to have Istio here, is because not only are we giving a free-to-play perspective of getting up to the G6 area, but also how the playstyles are going to vary, because one thing that Istio can definitely attest to, feel free to chime in so people don't think I'm lying, VIPs almost unanimously talk about how awful the G6 uncommon ships are. But I have a very strong feeling James is going to have the opposite experience based on how he's preparing and playing, and also his expectations of what he wants a ship to accomplish. So with that in mind, Istio, what is the experience for, you would say, the general G6 experience and thoughts when it comes to the uncommons? And also, what tip would you give to try to help him be efficient and prepare without spending for the G3 uncommons, and what he needs to, why he needs them, and where they're going with them?
And so the G6 uncommons, they're mostly research driven ships. So without the research to back them, without the forbidden tech to back them, they're really expensive to fix. And they don't generally measure up to their G5 Epic counterparts until they get that backing behind them. That being said, James is probably going to struggle with that a little bit. He's going to have to find the balancing point where he gets enough research behind it where the cost efficiency of repairing a G5 Epic 3 times, 4 times, versus the repair efficiency of 1 repair on his G6 Uncommon, let's say he gets to a point where that's where he's at, Sigma is so precious that he may find that he's still using his G5 or Epic far more often than he'd probably prefer, given the amount of resources you also have to invest into that G6 Uncommon.
Do you think warp range at 63 is going to be an issue in that choice, or do you think that his tier 8 Enterprise D is going to handle what he needs and that'll make the transition smoother?
I think warp range is not an issue with the G at 63 anyway. The big thing is if he can swing it, if he can get that G6 Uncommon up to tier 9, and that is a very tall ask for a free-to-play player because there's
I
a
doubt
lot
I'll
of
be
Sigma.
able to do that.
But if he pulls it off, the Borg cube becomes the efficiency master of the game in PvE.
And actually, great opportunity to segue in the next part, because for a lot of free-to-play who are watching, if you're trying to go G4, G5, most of you will know the Borg cube has very little value besides being gorgeous. I do love having one until you get into late G5. Where's your cube currently at? I mean, we'd have to go into like your ship swap menu or something to pull it up.
Yeah. I'll recall a ship here and show you.
Where is your cube at? How's that process been for you with it being so critical to the G6 playstyle?
Yeah, so I'm not really using it for it's what? Let's see. Tier 12. But again, it's so low in power. Like, look at my Enterprise D. It's just way stronger. I don't use it yet. And also, to get a ship to tier 9, that means I need to burn probably so much rare materials that will cost me weeks and even months in ops progression. I see no reason to do that. And as far as warp range that you brought up, it's a good point. I don't really have a warp range problem because what I do to complete my dailies, I actually relocate here. And then I use my Enterprise D doesn't have the warp range.
Correct.
But I'm here and I just kill the hostiles, I finish here, and then I move somewhere else to the equivalent system, which is over here. And then the same in Romulan.
So a lot of active management with things like eviscerators or back in the day discoveries to get where you need to be, relocate, which is what I did when I first got into G4. I mean, back then you didn't have Angel in Disguise missions yet. You didn't have Fleet Commander Kirk to give you bonus warp. So you had to relocate to G4, do your stuff there, then relocate back to other space to do your other stuff. So you're essentially taking strategies we used back in the day and using those into G6.
Yeah. As a free-to-play, you have to be resourceful. You got to use what the game gives you. And I have, like 800-900 relocation tokens. Might as well use them.
They have made
just
them
piling up.
far
They're doing
easier
nothing,
to get. So
yeah,
it's been because I'm assuming you have done the unlocks of everything in the Bajor. So now you've got double pulls. You got the 24-hour because you run on a PC client, so you get 2 24-hour chest pulls. All these things can increase the amount that you're getting. And I kind of did a targeted question there for Istio with the tiering up of the Enterprise D, because tier 9. I mean, just the rare cost for that is, I would have expected you to get the answer you did. You're just going to skip that. You're not going to bother with a tier 9 Enterprise D and try to push on in lower tier, which is similar to what Dekix did, and I believe still does when he went into the 50s. You know, his Coronar and stuff was very low tier. And then when he got to his 53 uncommons, kept it a very low tier, very similar to how my Vorcha is currently tier 4. I want to have a bigger Vorcha. I mean, I have power goals for my Vorcha, but if you're playing your style, like if the ops progression is your goal, then investing in ships just simply doesn't make a lot of mathematical sense.
Yeah, and as long as your ship can handle the day-to-day operations, the dailies and the missions, then so you burn a few more hulls, so not a big deal. Besides, we retire ships every 3 ops levels anyway. So then whatever I invest in it is just going to go to waste. Because the next ship is going to replace it. That's going to be my next flagship.
That's high proficiency. Which, to be very clear for anybody listening, I'm not saying this is a bad strategy by James. I could just never do it. I mean, I get so attached to my ships. Like, that's one of my personal greatest enjoyments in the game is ship acquisition and then using those ships. But a lot of that is my nostalgia. Like I grew up with Next Generation. I remember seeing the Vorcha for the first time and going, holy crap, best thing ever. Klingons are amazing. And that's been a goal for me. And just the same way I saw the Negvar when it came to DS9. Now I'm dying to get to 63 one day to have a Negvar. But so it just, a lot of it comes down to your personal goals of what you're setting. And in a lot of ways, you're similar to Loop, who is big on ops progression, but you're doing it in a way that is hyper-fixated on efficiency, which does lead me to a couple of, I think, basics that a lot of people will know is, what were some of the pitfalls that you noticed that you did mistake-wise? I know you hit on one big regret, but what are mistakes that you have fixed, say, progressing as a free-to-play from G4, G5, now in G6, that you have found that are, hey, this is the area you really want to focus on being efficient? All right, big rev to say, going to leave you on that cliffhanger. Not that I'm not going to give you the rest of it, but I wanted to break this into parts. There's going to be a part 2 to this interview. I think we've gotten a lot of really to me, very interesting information about free-to-play, the different lifestyle, the different play style progressing into G6. And I also want to open up and say, and I mentioned at the very beginning of the intro, is I want to do more stuff like this with y'all. So I don't want this to be the only time we go through these, because I think being able to see somebody else's play style and see where they've gotten and how they do things is a great representation of not only them, but also other players who might share that. Because I say it all the time on my live streams, right? I play a certain way, and I say it on streams that not everybody would probably even like to play with me, but if we can show all the benefits of different styles and how all that works together, well, it interests me and hopefully it interests you. And if it does, well, like the video, share it out, subscribe, do all those things. I know the longer content isn't necessarily for everybody, but if you enjoyed it, hit the thumbs up. Appreciate you, and stay tuned for part 2, going over some of the things you were seeing us allude to right there at the end. And a big thank you, of course, to JB and Istio for putting this together. And we'll do more of it if y'all enjoy it. Love ya, and catch ya on part 2. Cliffhangers are fun.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.